Christodoulides.
Dear colleagues, good morning. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming Nikos Christodoulides, the President of Cyprus, in Strasbourg. Thank you, dear Nikos, for being here with us today as part of our This is Europe series of debates to discuss our common agenda for Europe's future. It is testimony to your commitment as President and to Cyprus's commitment to Europe as the European Union continues to face unprecedented challenges on multiple fronts. Cyprus will play an important and strategic role in Europe's energy solution, in ensuring that the Mediterranean remains a sea of peace and prosperity, and in pushing Europe forward, in showing that it is the size of ideas that matters more than geography. Together, I know that we can find solutions to intergenerational questions. There is room to build trust. Cyprus's solidarity with Turkey after the earthquakes of last February was proof of that. And dear Nikos, let me be clear, you will not be left alone. Your challenges are Europe's too. This is not just a Cyprus question, but a Europe question. The first thing that I said in this House when I was entrusted to lead it was to tell Cyprus that you are not alone, that Europe will never be complete as long as Cyprus remains divided, that we can use the power of Europe to find solutions and ways forward. This is why this European Parliament will continue to support our shared ambition to see the reunification of your island under the auspices of the UN peace plan. If Cyprus has taught Europe anything throughout history, it is that the future is full of possibility. And we all look forward to building a European future together with Cyprus. Dear President, dear Nikos, the floor is yours.
Honourable President of the European Parliament, honourable members of the European Parliament, Vice President of the European Commission. First of all, I would like to thank the President for her kind invitation, asking me to come here a little bit over 3 months after I became President of the Republic of Cyprus, to address the European Parliament, to speak before all of you and outline my vision of the present and the future of the European Union, the present and the future of our European citizens, and to explain how I think that together we can tackle common challenges, and I believe that on a consensual basis we can contribute to a brighter future for the European Union. This is a symbolic chamber, the plenary chamber of the European Parliament here in Strasbourg, and I'm quite familiar with it. And maybe it's because I've worked with the European Parliament in the past that I feel such strong emotions. But above all, I feel a sense of responsibility. Responsibility because now I stand here before you as the President of a member state. I'm a member now of the European Council. For me, it is a huge honour to address you today. You are the elected representatives of European citizens, and I address you here today in a chamber where the constant and strong heartbeat of European democracy beats. It is a great honour, and of course, we also owe you very much because I know that you play a decisive role. You contribute to high quality of life of our citizens in all corners of Europe. And you're also working towards a brighter future based on prosperity and security, and this is for the whole planet. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm one of those who believe that the European Union is the most important collective achievement of our continent since the period of Enlightenment. The political vision of these enlightened individuals to bring together our continent through setting up the institutions of the European Union in order to secure peace and in order to make sure that there would be peace and prosperity for our peoples. And I believe that this is more necessary than ever. At the same time, I think that the work done by these pioneers hasn't been completed. I think it is constantly developing and evolving, and now it is up to us to decide how this is going to move forward. The project that we have inherited should be seen as a legacy, and it should be seen as an achievement that we have to bolster. And in order to do this, we need to be bold, we need to be visionaries, and we have to be decisive. It is not a choice. It is our duty to strive hard for a European Union that will become stronger every day through the deepening of our institutions, through more common policies, and with, yes, the member states giving up more of their national sovereignty in order to contribute to these common supranational institutions so that everyone can have a good life and live in peace, security, and in order to improve the future for all European citizens, regardless of where they come from and where they live. Ladies and gentlemen, I truly believe that the European Union is the biggest model of peace and security after a dreadful 20th century that claimed the lives of millions of people on our continent. I'm fully aware as a current European leader that we have a duty to develop this model of peace that Schuman, Monet, Altiero Spinelli, Paul-Henri Spaak, and Simone Weil bequeathed us. I am a staunch proponent of a targeted approach, of taking this step by step in order to build a European Union that has clearly federal features. This is what our collective interests demand of us, because the current situation is difficult, it is constantly evolving and changing, there are multiple challenges on the international stage, and that is why we have to make sure that we join forces and work effectively. And as EU member states, we shouldn't only think about how we're going to survive on the international stage given the strong geopolitical rivalries. As EU member states, we have to create the necessary conditions to make sure that we are at the forefront, that we are united in diversity, and that we harness our strong human potential, sharing our common values and principles that anchor the European project so strongly. I firmly believe that we can make the European Union a trailblazer and a protagonist on the international stage. After the tragedy of the disastrous wars of the first half of the 20th century, and with the aim of never going through this again, there were those who were bold and courageous enough to have a vision and a dream for a united Europe. They realized, and rightly so, that we can draw strength from our diversity. They realized that power and strength comes from unity. So we have to build on this legacy, and we have to strengthen our unity so that it cannot be swayed by anyone. This will be our main tool, our strength, our compass for the future that we want for Europe and our citizens. So we harnessed this unity, and I'm very proud of this. And this is what we drew on in order to tackle the multiple challenges that are testing us, that have tested us, or are still testing us to this very day. Ladies and gentlemen, Cyprus, in the most southern eastern tip of the European Union, has been an inextricable part of Europe from the beginning of time. We have political, economic, and cultural ties, and all of these ties were set up thousands of years ago, and we've constantly nurtured these ties. Cyprus joined the EU in the spring of 2004 on a historic day that I still remember. It is alive in our memories and the memories of all Cypriots. This is something that we had been waiting for a very long time. It was something natural. It was a return to where we belonged by making the existing strong historic ties with continental Europe reality again. I believe that when we joined the EU in 2004, we could say that this moment was the most important historic moment since the Republic of Cyprus was set up back in 1960. And it also symbolizes the return to our home, our common European home. Ladies and gentlemen, today, almost after 20 years, Cyprus is an active member of the European Union. And it's against this backdrop that I'll be proud to take on the rotating presidency of Cyprus during my term. This will be in the first half of 2026. I was lucky enough to be actively involved in the first presidency of the Republic of Cyprus, and I have no doubt about the fact that the upcoming presidency will be an important milestone, not only for the European Union, but also for my country. I'd like to assure you that today that Cyprus will make the most of this opportunity in order to offer a positive contribution and as an honest broker to make sure that we have institutional unity and in order to make sure that we can go through as many legislative files as possible in order to increase the added value of the EU legislative process and so that EU citizens can benefit from this. Moreover, we're already examining necessary political initiatives that I would like us to take during the Cypriot presidency. This is about political cooperation with the Mediterranean and the Middle East. Honourable members of the European Parliament, I was recently elected as President of the Republic of Cyprus, but this wouldn't have been possible without the support of the two main parties, but also with the decisive support of civil society and smaller parties and movements. And all this was done on the basis of a manifesto focusing on human beings. This is vital. We've also been looking at best practices in other member states. This model is backed by what we have been taught by our active involvement in the European Union for all these years. My aim is to make sure that Cypriot citizens live a good life and that there's peace and security. I was elected, and I believe that this confirms the need for change. And because people want citizens' problems to be heard so that we can come up with solutions and so that Cyprus and Cypriot citizens can look at their daily lives with optimism and they can look towards the future on the basis of equality for all citizens, cooperation in the fields of education and health. We want a smooth transition towards a greener, more digital, modern and equal and fair society. I've listened to our society, and right after I was elected, I started implementing a program which is my social contract with the Cypriot people. We have the upcoming European elections in order to elect the new members of the European Parliament. This is on the horizon, it's just around the corner, and I believe that it is our duty to listen to citizens. We have to bring them closer to the European project, or even better, we need to convince them that we are their voice, that we are not in an ivory tower, that we stand by their side and that we have an overarching common goal, which is prosperity And we want to make sure that everyone's rights are respected. We believe in equal opportunities for all. We have to regain the trust of our citizens and make sure that they believe in the European ideals of peace, cooperation, solidarity and prosperity. Now, if we are to achieve this, we have to do more to make sure that European citizens are aware of what the EU does for them and how they contribute to their security and daily lives. So we need to communicate better. We need our citizens to truly feel the changes that we are achieving with such effort, the green transition, the digital transformation, the digital transition, migration, and so on. It is our duty to show political responsibility, and we need to ensure that the proposals that the citizens themselves put forward are followed on. It was here in this very chamber where we heard from the citizens. So this has to be the guiding principle and our compass for the next steps that we take in the future. I also firmly believe that the European Union has to have strategic autonomy when it comes to security, energy, health, and other areas. This doesn't mean that the EU is going to isolate itself or that we're going to turn our backs on our natural or historic allies. Quite to the contrary. But I believe that today, and more than ever, we need a European Union that will be in a position to tackle challenges. And in this way, it will be more valuable, but it'll also be an ally for its friends and be on an equal footing. Strategic autonomy is absolutely necessary in light of our interests in this constantly evolving international reality. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, which must be condemned, reminds us of this.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine, the war continues. It is therefore crucial that we equally continue our support to the heroic people of Ukraine. Let me be clear, dear friends, we will never allow border changes stemming from violence and war. We will never accept the result of Russia's aggression against an independent, sovereign state. It is a matter of principle and a priority to ensure that anarchy and the law of the jungle will not prevail over international law and the international rule-based order. The European Union ought to be at the forefront of upholding international law and the UN Charter. This is, after all, an inherent part of its foundation and of the European Union treaties. For Cypriots in particular, who themselves have been victims of foreign invasion and almost half a century-long occupation by Turkey, there is no other choice. From day one of Russia's aggression against Ukraine, Cyprus has maintained an unequivocal principled stance in support of the independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. This is the path of which we will continue. Cyprus will continue to support Ukraine, including through the European Peace Facility and the European Union Monitoring Assistance Mission. We have been sending to Ukraine the biggest humanitarian aid package ever assembled on the island. We are also hosting a large number of Ukrainian refugees relative to our population, and we will continue to do so. Cyprus will be their safe haven for as long as necessary. Within the European Union, we exhibited unprecedented unity in response to this war. Our unity proved to be our most important tool. We have taken painful decisions that have come at a cost for our peoples and societies, but it is a cost worth shouldering. In unity, we need to continue to jointly address issues that affect Ukraine, but also have repercussions beyond European Union borders. It has become blatantly and painfully clear that peace on the European continent cannot be taken for granted, that we must defend it, and that a threat to peace somewhere in Europe is a threat to each and every country in Europe. Russia's military aggression against Ukraine has also upended energy markets, triggering price volatility and energy security across the world. A crucial new element in the European policy response to this situation is the Repower EU plan, building on the full implementation of the European Green Deal. As a result, both the European Union and its member states are dynamically reshaping their energy strategies to reflect new geopolitical realities and to address the need for affordable energy. This includes intensified actions to increase gas supplies from the European Union's trusted partners. Cyprus, the only member state in the Eastern Mediterranean region with confirmed gas reserves and with historically excellent relations and long-standing partnerships in the field of energy with the vast majority of its neighbours, can play a key role in our joint efforts to address the energy crisis by providing a reliable alternative energy corridor to Europe comprising diverse sources and routes. We are of the view that the presence of major oil and gas companies in the region could be leveraged to create synergies towards a sustainable regional gas market that could supply the European Union with gas in the immediate future and with hydrogen in a few years' time. For this reason, we are intensifying our discussions with all major oil and gas companies to implement our vision to connect these different gas fields in the region via pipelines to a modular liquefaction plant situated in Cyprus, through which gas can be exported to Europe. In addition, the East Med region has recently become much more proactive in pursuing and enhancing its energy goals towards a green transition. Both Israel and Egypt are progressing with important renewable energy projects to export renewable energy as well as to use it internally. As such, in 5 to 10 years' time, the regional electricity interconnections currently in the pipeline could contribute significantly to the supply of renewable energy from the East Med region to the European markets. Maintaining a stable and secure environment in the Eastern Mediterranean is to the benefit of the region and its people, but also of strategic importance for the European Union. It is therefore of critical importance for the Union to continue sending clear and firm messages of deterrence to potential spoilers in the region, urging them not to proceed to new provocations and to engage constructively in the efforts aiming at reaching solutions in a peaceful and sustainable way, always based on international law. Dear friends, further to energy equation of the Eastern Mediterranean, one must acknowledge that the common and pressing challenges the region faces can be addressed effectively only by acting collectively. Cyprus, as a pillar of stability and security in a volatile region, actively promotes its regional cooperation policy through the trilateral mechanisms of cooperation it established with Greece and other countries of the region in an effort to create regional synergies and partnerships. These regional collaborations have yielded tangible results through the consolidation of regional partnerships that contribute to strengthening our relations at the political level, as well as expanding and deepening them in several actors such as energy, security and defence, environmental protection, natural disasters and cultural heritage. It goes without saying that no country is excluded from such networks of regional cooperation, provided that they respect international law. Further strengthening of our relations with the countries of the Mediterranean, the Middle East, North Africa and Gulf will remain a key pillar of Cyprus' foreign policy. This empowers Cyprus to have an active role as a geopolitical gateway between the European Union and the MENA region. We believe that Cyprus' regional policy adds value to the European Union's common foreign and security policy. Our political ties with the countries of the southern neighbourhood allow us to bring strategic knowledge in the relevant European Union discussions, while at the same time we are able to convey key messages of their specific concerns to our European Union partners and vice versa. Cyprus' geopolitical position and its proximity to the continents of Asia and Africa is another determining factor, most recently evident when the island was utilised as a safe transit hub in the evacuation efforts from Sudan. This was not the first time Cyprus has assisted in such operations, with the most extended one being during the Lebanon crisis in 2006, when tens of thousands were evacuated and provided with humanitarian assistance, proving the lasting contribution of Cyprus as a reliable stakeholder and as a safe harbour in the region. We shall continue to contribute our utmost whenever is needed. Despite the challenges the region is faced with, we are also witnessing that the Middle East and the Eastern Mediterranean are on a positive, transformative trajectory. The changing political dynamics are on in our neighbourhood, such as the recent rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia, the Abraham Accords, the establishment of the East Mediterranean Gas Forum in Cairo, and the maritime border deal between Israel and Lebanon constitute indicative examples of this rapidly evolving geopolitical mosaic. The wider Middle East and Gulf is not just Cyprus' neighbourhood. It is the European Union's neighbourhood, and a vital one at that. We need to acknowledge with courage and honesty that as a European Union, we have not invested as much as we ought to in this very important region. We ought to boldly work on making it a strategic priority to engage on a positive agenda with our partners in the region, whom we must see as equal partners, to assert a more active, extrovert role so as to effectively reinforce the European Union ties with the southern neighbours, and in doing so, promoting peace and stability in the region. Dear friends, turning to migration, a crisis that is linked also to this important region, we must take into consideration the overall migratory pressures that Europe is facing, with certain member states, including Cyprus, being at the forefront. In fact, Cyprus is a member state with the highest percentage of first-time asylum applications in relation to the population. The military occupation of 37% of the territory of Cyprus constitutes an aggravating factor that hinders efforts towards sound management of flows, since control of those entering the country is practically impossible. Consequently, Cyprus is particularly vulnerable to the instrumentalisation practices used by third countries, and this is clear from statistical data showing that over 90% of the migrants applying for asylum have departed from Turkey. The government is committed to take all necessary action to improve infrastructure for the reception of asylum seekers and expedite examination procedures, but also to increase the rate of returns of those who do not have any legal right to remain in Cyprus, making use of the support provided by the European Union and its agencies, which we greatly appreciate. Furthermore, the government is in close contact with the Commission, which is preparing a dedicated action plan for the Eastern Mediterranean migratory route. Domestically, we are also introducing a bill next week for the establishment of a Deputy Ministry for Immigration, Asylum and Integration, so as to better coordinate and implement our policies, which also, of course, include policies for effectively integrating legally residing third-country nationals. However, it will be difficult to achieve tangible and sustainable results in the absence of addressing the root causes of the phenomenon, or in the absence of a coordinated response at the European Union level, one that will convince Turkey to honour the obligations already assumed towards all member states. Last week, the Council reached a general approach on two crucial aspects of the new Pact for Migration and Asylum. The difficulty of the negotiations demonstrates how complex the issue is for all member states and how many concessions have to be made in order to reach this agreement. Having said that, I hope the discussions with the European Parliament will proceed quickly. For the Pact to work, it is imperative to maintain balance between solidarity and the principle of responsibility, and to keep working hard on the external aspects of migration so as to reduce irregular flows. Dear friends, an integral part of promotion of peace in the region of the Eastern Mediterranean is our effort to reunify Cyprus through a comprehensive settlement in line with international law, UN Security Council resolutions, and the European Union law, values and principles. Peace in Cyprus, with the European Union at the forefront, will send a resounding message of peace in a region that desperately needs it. The
European Parliament has always supported Cyprus and its struggle to find a settlement to the Cyprus problem, a problem of invasion and occupation which is still an open wound in the whole of Europe. On behalf of the Cypriot government and on behalf of the Cypriot people, I'd like to thank you for all your efforts and for the key resolutions that are so important for us, including the resolutions on Famagusta Varosha and the approval and at some point increase of EU funding and donations in relation to helping with missing persons. I'd like to thank the President of the European Parliament for her genuine personal interest and for all the work done by the political groups to help end the occupation and reunify our island. The reunification of Cyprus through a comprehensive viable settlement within the framework of what has been agreed with the UN is the #1 priority of my government. 49 years of occupation and division at the heart of Europe are too many. I can assure you that I will spare no efforts to make sure that talks resume within the framework of what has been agreed on within the UN and on the basis of that solution and where we left off at Crans-Montana in 2017. Now, in order to achieve this, I have met the Secretary General and other officials of the UN and EU institutions and my counterparts in many EU member states and the Turkish Cypriot leader. And in all my meetings, I have said that it is absolutely necessary to take a new approach. And my proposal is to make sure that the EU has an enhanced role, both in order to break the deadlock, but also to breathe new life into the talks. I would like to take advantage of this opportunity to make sure that this is clear and there are no misunderstandings. We do not want to change the framework for a solution, which are always the relevant resolutions of the UN General Assembly. After all, they are our way of protecting ourselves against the Turkish approach of two states. And let me also say that we don't want the EU to replace the United Nations. On the contrary, we want the European Union to complement the work done by the United Nations. We need to harness the EU as a tool that brings about reunification, because that is the nature of the EU. It is about consensus, it is about peace, and about respecting the human rights of everyone. This is what is enshrined in the treaties of the European Union, but also the community acquis. The Republic of Cyprus is an EU member state, and the Cyprus problem is a European problem that requires European solutions. It is in the interest of the European Union, but is also its duty to actively contribute to settlement so we can have a comprehensive settlement, and it needs to harness all the political and economic means at its disposal, as well as the tools that it has, even within the broader Euro-Turkish framework of Euro-Turkish relations. I am very happy to discuss this package within the framework of European-Turkish relations, which will run in parallel with the negotiations on the agreed basis. I would like to see a high-level European politician become an EU envoy responsible for the Cyprus problem. I think that this would contribute greatly. It would help break the deadlock and help with the resumption of talks. Of course, if we all manage to get back to the table, then the European Union will also have to provide technocratic help, like it did in the previous round of negotiations. The presence of the European Union contributed to a great extent to a lot of convergence, and that really helped all Cypriots, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. And the EU involvement was decisive, and it helped us get very close to a settlement back in 2017. But at the moment, the presence of the EU is vital because we're really looking at how we can break the stalemates. The Cyprus problem can actually be a new peace model for the EU. It can show that the EU has the necessary toolkit and skills in order to help bring about peace and security. This is our goal, and we will work tirelessly towards this aim. And I hope that everyone here in the European Parliament will be our allies and staunch supporters. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude the speech today underscoring the importance of the participation of the Republic of Cyprus as a member state on an equal footing. I have emphasized this in the past on numerous occasions, and I mentioned this today. Joining the EU is the biggest historic achievement since the Republic of Cyprus was set up. 19 years after we acceded to the EU, I believe that despite the difficulties and problems that our European family has come up against, I believe that the participation of Cyprus in the European Union is a strong political shield against any threats that jeopardize our national security. The fact that the island of Cyprus is still divided and it is still occupied by Turkey, it constitutes the biggest political anachronism at the moment. And yet we have a current union of member states, the most modern in the whole of the world. Jean Monnet believed that problems could be solved by adding a new dimension to the issue, changing the initial framework of the problem. He said, you change the context, you change the problem. This is something that he emphasized. I truly believe that if the EU becomes more involved and its institutions become more involved and it changes the framework of the problem, and if we can also put in the Euro-Turkish dimension, then I think that we can break the deadlock and resume negotiations and pick up where we left off back in July 2017 in order to come up with a comprehensive settlement to the Cyprus problem. We don't want any less or any more than what the citizens of the rest of the EU member states have. The Cypriot refugee, the Cypriot citizen, whether Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot, whether Maronite, Armenian or Latin, has the right to enjoy the same rights in his or her homeland and has to enjoy the same freedoms as any other European citizen. This might seem obvious, but this is our goal, and we truly believe that the European Union can truly contribute to this and become a catalyst for peace.
As an independent candidate, without the support of any party, I was elected against the odds the first time a president of Cyprus was elected without the support of one of the two big political parties. I know how to make brave, bold moves against the odds, and I believe with engagement from all parties and from the European Union, I can be the president to solve the Cyprus problem. Κλείνω λέγοντας ότι
I will wrap up by saying that for my government, and personally I believe that a strong EU means a strong Cyprus. A strong Cyprus means a stronger Europe. I am politically committed to work tirelessly in the European Council and beyond in order to make sure that the European Union will stand united during this very difficult period that we're going through with geopolitical instability and the fact that war has returned to our continent. I firmly believe that if we remain loyal to the founding principles and values of the European Union, then we can hope for better days. We can hope for a better, stronger European Union that will only benefit our citizens, especially the new generation of Europeans that are looking at what we're doing every day, and they are crying out for hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Christodoulides. We now move to the speakers of the different political groups, starting with the President of the EPP Group, Manfred Weber, for 3 minutes.
President Metsola, Vice President Dombrovskis, dear President Christodoulides, dear Nikos, welcome in the European Parliament and congratulations for your success, for your election as President, for the mandate people of Cyprus gave to you. In 2004, your country fulfilled a long-time aspiration joining the European Union. In 2008, you entered into the Eurozone, making your common market, our common market and our currency stronger. In 2012, Cyprus held its first presidency over the European Council, shaping the European agenda from a Cypriot's point of view. In the last 10 years, Cyprus went from a country on brink of collapse, suffering from mistakes of a former government, to a European role model of prosperity and stability. You have regained your country's financial credibility after the financial crisis through a remarkable economic recovery with discipline, with hard work and with responsible financial management. And I want to thank you also personally because as Foreign Minister in the cabinet of President Anastasiadis, you also contributed to this success story. In 2026, you mentioned it already, you will hold again the presidency from the European Council for the second time. We all hope it will be a presidency without a bloody and ruthless war at our doorstep. The Russian war in Ukraine has shaken the whole Europe to its core, and it rages on. Europe must continue to stand on the side of Ukrainians, whatever it takes. And it is in these terrifying times, it's great to see Cypriots next to the Ukrainians fighting for our European way of life. As Cypriots, you know firsthand what it means to be attacked, how it feels to live with the open wound of a divided country, an open wound for the whole of Europe. For us as EPP, we stand united behind Cyprus. Our position on the Cyprus issue has always been crystal clear. Cyprus issues are European issues. There can never be a united Europe with a divided Cyprus. Dear President, in July 2024, will be the 50th anniversary of the Turkish occupation of Cyprus. No one in Europe wants to celebrate this sad anniversary. We now have 1 year left. If it is time to find now a solution to reunify Cyprus, it's time to finally heal this wound. Now Erdogan is no longer in election campaign. Perhaps this is also a chance for more willingness to compromise. Turkey must respect the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Cyprus. The two-state solution proposed by the Turkish side is unacceptable, and its military provocations and the offshore drillings in the territorial waters of Cyprus are violating international law. Erdogan must stop playing imperial games and come to his senses. And, dear President, we must protect Europe from Erdogan's instrumentalization of migration on the Green Line. Thank you for continuing the hard work and taking important steps to regulate illegal migration. You mentioned it, and to increase also the number of returns of illegal migrants. Europe does not respond to Erdogan's blackmailing.
Thank you.
Turkey is an important partner, no doubt about this, but we need now to be clear in our talks with Erdogan. The European Union must win back economic strength with Cyprus' contribution. Let us do everything possible so that soon we can stop counting sad anniversaries of occupation and instead finally celebrating joyful days of reunification. Thank you.
Thank you, President Weber. Next, on behalf of the S&D Group, I give the floor to Kostas Mavridis for 2 minutes.
You might need again your headphones, I guess. Kyria Proedre.
Madam President, Vice President, Honourable President of the Republic of Cyprus, on behalf of the Socialists and Democrats, I would like to congratulate you on your election, and I'd like to welcome you to the European Parliament. The European Parliament is the main institution of the European family that reflects the views of European citizens. The European Union faces key challenges and objectives relating to the economy, society, the environment, and security. But all of these are inextricably linked, and if we want to manage all of this, we need a European approach and an all-encompassing approach. For example, we cannot achieve our environmental goals, our green economy goals, and targets relating to energy, society, and other areas if we don't manage migration efficiently, and if we also don't deal with security. So we support the efforts to solve the Cyprus problem caused by the Turkish invasion and continued occupation of Cypriot territory, which is also EU territory, as you said yourself, and rightly so. I'd like to say that the pandemic and the Russian invasion of Ukraine highlighted the potential of the European Union and what we can achieve when we act in a united fashion, especially in the European Council. And I think this is what we have to do when it comes to Cyprus, because Cyprus is the victim of the violation of international law. You talked about the EU playing an active role, and you talked about the fact that they need to contribute to the resumption of talks so that we can have a reunified European country on the basis of the UN General Assembly resolutions and the binding rules and laws of the European Union. Are a safeguard and guarantee for prosperity in the future, and would also mean that all the legal citizens of Cyprus are respected regardless of where they come from, their religion, the language they speak, and so on. President, here in the European Parliament, you have the support of all of us, because I'd like to paraphrase what the President of the European Parliament said during her inauguration speech. The European Union cannot be complete while we still have occupying forces, Turkish occupying forces, and that Cyprus is split. We also understand that there are a lot of problems in many areas because the migration migration issue is being exploited. And the European Union finally has made some steps. I'm almost done, President, just a few more words. As a political group, we constantly think of the European citizen. Young people, women, and other vulnerable groups face certain problems, and tackling them are our priorities. We supported the Resilience and Recovery Fund and truly believe that housing is important. Interruption by the President. If you move towards a strategic economy for a strong Europe and strong Cyprus, and for as long as you do that, we will stand by your side.
Next, the President of the Renew Europe Group, Stéphane Séjourné, for 3 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for specifying the allocated time. Madam President, Sir, I'd like to start, sir, by welcoming you to the European Parliament. The people of Cyprus, by electing you, have reaffirmed their European sentiment, but they also do not like it when the status quo is imposed on them. That is an excellent sign of democratic vitality. You know, sir, that my group is very keen to see those who want to reform and who are prepared to make changes. You have been unambiguously in support of Ukraine, as well as the support for the Asylum and Migration Pact. That is also proof of your commitment. In Renew Europe, and as a part of our political group, as a part of your majority, it is with respect, then, that we always welcome those who have determined that they would like to support those who are pro-European in their role as head of state of government. Moreover, you have supported the reunification of the island. Yes, Europe has a role to play. Too frequently in Brussels, we had the feeling that this was a subject that came down to Cyprus and Cyprus alone, or between Cyprus and Turkey. I think that that is a mistake. We believe that this is a mistake. 1.4 million fellow European citizens live in a highly militarized zone. The conflict in Cyprus, therefore, impacts us directly because the green zone is an important passage spot for illegal migration. We know precisely the path that is taken. We know also the challenges that Greece, Italy, Spain, Malta face, Cyprus as well. We cannot turn a blind eye to the situation. Yes, the issue of Cyprus is a European question, and we are prepared to play our role in the resolution of conflict. We support your proposal of a special emissary. We think that the analysis is good, and the ball is also in the Turkish court. We cannot accept a two-state solution. The conditions posed by President Erdogan just a few days ago are in violation of international law. Europe is a guarantor of international law. We have shown, and along with Greece in the past, we must continue to do this along with Cyprus, if need be, that Cyprus' sovereignty and European sovereignty are part and parcel of the European Union, and we will make sure that we support you in the east of the Mediterranean. You can count on the Renew Europe group. Thank you again, and thank you, Madam President. 3 minutes and 10 seconds.
Now I give the floor to the co-chair of the Green Group, Philip Lamberts, for 2.5 minutes.
Mr. President, welcome to the European Parliament. I really appreciate these opportunities that we have to debate on the future of Europe with members of the European Council, because I'm one who believes that Parliament and Council have to work closely together. That's the only way to achieve success here. Cyprus enjoys a privilege, that no other member state has, and that is to have parts of its territory militarily occupied. And it's not a privilege, it's really a plague. And there I must commend your efforts and your determination. You deserve the solidarity and the engagement of the European Union to achieve a peaceful reunification of the country under international law. you have the full support of the Green CFA group in order to achieve this. There's a second point where I do believe Cyprus needs the solidarity and engagement of the European Union, and that's indeed on asylum and migration. Yes, countries such as yours really carry a more than proportionate part of the effort of welcoming people. And indeed, we cannot let countries at the borders, and especially the southern borders of Europe, alone in that. But frankly speaking, the asylum and migration pact that is currently being discussed, in our view, is not the kind of solidarity and engagement that you need. Because yes, Manfred, I agree that not everyone has the right to live in Europe. No, we cannot welcome the entire humanity here. But Europe has also a responsibility towards asylum seekers, but also in the causes that force people to migrate. And there, I believe that Europe can do more. We cannot be just a fortress against the rest of the world. Now, there's two aspects where I would like to see engagement and solidarity from Cyprus towards the rest of the European Union. The first is, you know, this music of dirty money hovering around Cyprus, these golden passports granted to, guess who, Russian oligarchs. We need to root that out. No, EU's citizenship is not for sale. And making friends with such oligarchs, well, you look what the Russian regime is capable of. I would say Cyprus should know better, and we fight against that kind of dirty money. Finally, that's a green transition. And yes, I heard you praising the opportunities for the green transition, but I also heard you a lot speaking about oil and gas. And frankly speaking, in 2023, oil and gas cannot play a crucial role in the transition. We need really to embrace the green transition, not just as a necessity, but as an economic opportunity for all of us.
Thank you.
So we count on you for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lamberts. Adesso do la parola al Presidente del Gruppo.
Now I give the floor to Nicola Boccaccini, Chair of the ECR. Thank you, President. Colleagues, in Cyprus, the past and the future of the European Union come together. The story of this island is the story of the Mediterranean. Its geographical situation has always made it of great strategic value. Since 2000, the UN have redoubled their efforts to open a new cycle of negotiation on the island, and I feel certain that the European Union must strengthen its own hand in the resumption of talks. That inevitably, in parallel to this, leads us to defining once and for all the relations that we should have between the European Union and Turkey. While, on the one hand, we can't accept any threat to Cyprus's sovereignty, on the other hand, it's very much in all of our interests to have a strategic partnership with Ankara for purposes of economic development and defence. The closing of the suspension of Turkey's membership negotiations should nonetheless lead us to a constructive relationship. Europe needs to define its position. Joining Europe involves the bringing down of walls and the bringing together of European peoples. We saw it in Berlin and in Belfast. We need to make a success of this in Nicosia too. That's the last capital city in Europe divided by a wall. But there's more to Cyprus than an area where you see the split between Europe and the Middle East. There are two key issues on our agenda in its order to look at the failure of Europe's policies on asylum and migration. Fortunately, something is changing. There's a new, less ideological, more realistic approach making headway in the European Union. And the significant gas deposits found in Cyprus waters hold out new prospects for the development of the Eastern Mediterranean, geopolitically as well as economically. President Christodoulides, most of your problems are similar to those faced by other European member states, particularly countries such as Italy, Spain, Malta and Greece. Immigration, securing our borders, energy, the central role of the Mediterranean, fisheries and responsible tourism, common challenges which we need to tackle with a different approach than that which is applied up until now. In the current context, we are in a minority. We find ourselves opposing certain proposals we disagree with. But as the European elections come along, following a range of recent national elections, we feel ever less alone. The thinking behind our proposals are spreading far and wide, and very soon we will be returning to Ithaca.
Now I give the floor to the co-president of the ID Group, Jordan Bardella, for 2 minutes.
Madame la Présidente du Parlement.
Madam President of the European Parliament, President of the Republic of Cyprus, thank you for joining us today in the chamber of the European Parliament here in Strasbourg. The whole question of national sovereignty, independence and military occupation have, for very good reason, been at the heart of our debate since February 2022. Cyprus has been leading such a struggle on a daily basis for more than a quarter of a century. We often hear that the north of Cyprus is occupied by Turkey under the leadership of President Erdogan, who's shown no willingness either to negotiate or to work towards peace. The events yesterday regarding the occupied part demonstrates his unwillingness and the intractable situation regarding the North Cyprus Republic. As I've said many times in the past, Turkey is one of the club of international powers which has been trying to overturn the international order by threatening the sovereignty and maritime waters of countries such as Cyprus and Greece. The policies conducted by President Macron in France involve a clear signal which France has sent out to the peoples of Greece and Cyprus in the face of this unacceptable intimidation. Obviously, it's very much in the interest of our respective countries to continue and indeed step up, President, our cooperation when it comes to defence. The Cyprus issue is not a purely local one. This is a Europe-wide problem which poses a real threat to our civilization in the face of Turkey. If we recognise the threat from Erdogan's geopolitical ambitions, we can see this clearly undermines our security. We should add to this immigration from Africa, which has been actively encouraged by Erdogan, and this is a challenge to the whole of Europe, which the rest of the European Union turns a deaf ear to. President, I would like to express the hope that Europe finally stops turning a blind eye by stating its clear support for your country and your people. You can, of course, count on our support. Thank you.
I invite Mr. Georgios Georgiou to take the floor. 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam President. President, I would like to welcome you here on behalf of the group of the United Left. Welcome to Strasbourg. We're going to be stringent but fair with you, as my party AKEL usually acts, and there's a lot that we can say, of course, back in Cyprus. And I think that it's right that you're asking for the more active involvement of the EU by appointing a high-level representatives. I can't see much enthusiasm here in the chamber, maybe because they know things from the past, I don't know, or maybe because the accession process for Turkey has been put on the back burner and they're moving towards something else. But we're losing leverage, and Mr. Erdogan is only getting gifts, a visa waiver, customs union, just so that it doesn't take the side of Russia and it can be a loyal NATO ally and help us with migration. Do you not think that the time has come to harness the proposal put forward by AKEL and to use energy, to harness energy as a catalyst for change? I would like to touch upon migration. You touched upon it as well. I think that the Home Affairs Minister reached a deal There's the issue of the EU-Turkey agreement, but there isn't a fair distribution mechanism on the basis of what each and every country can do. So I think the approach taken is immoral, and wealthy countries pay 20,000 per person, and southern countries are becoming warehouses of human beings. I think, President, that Cyprus is in the dock because of the illegal spyware. I welcome your commitment and the fact that you said that you're doing everything you can and that you're going to take into account the committee's issues. Now, Mr. Weber has left the chamber, but I'd like to say that Cyprus had financial problems not because previous governments made a change, but because the banking union and the huge capitalist crisis. I'm almost done, President. And that Mr. Anastasiadis inherited meant that Cyprus ended up where it ended up in. But the war in Ukraine is causing huge problems with expropriation. And I hope that you will respect the directives and regulations of the European Union so that we can avoid a terrible social tragedy that is in the offing. There are huge geopolitical and economic difficulties with huge interruption by the President. President, if you are bold and courageous, we will stand by your side.
Now to Ms. Tatiana Zdanoka for 1 minute.
Honorable President Metsola, Vice President Dombrovskis, President Christodoulides, you mentioned in your speech the EU slogan, United in Diversity. I would like to ask you, how do you understand it? I posed this question already during previous debates on the future of Europe. Does the word diversity only imply to the borders and differences between member states? Whether these states remain themselves as national states, with only one official language, only one belief, only one appreciation of history? Policy of linguistic genocide is taking place, to my regret, in many countries, including my country, Latvia, by abolishing education on minority languages. More and more political prisoners appear. Their only guilt is difference opinion of recent history.
Thank you very much.
I'll mention only 3 names in Baltic states: Algirdas Paleskis in Lithuania, Tatiana Andriets in Latvia, in my country, and Sergei Seredenko in Estonia.
Okay, thank you very much.
I don't think
I need to give the floor to the next speaker. Next is Lucas Furlas for 1.5 minutes.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, Cyprus is a small country on the edge of Europe where the West meets the East at a crossroads of history and culture. And we have survived and are surviving in this corner of the earth because we believe in the principles and values that make us European: justice, solidarity, and freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, Cyprus is the only European country where part of its territory is under occupation. It is occupied by a country that has been knocking on the door of Europe and that wants to benefit politically and economically, but without offering anything and without making concessions. A country with a government that doesn't negotiate, that doesn't sit around the table, and that keeps creating de facto situations. On the contrary, we've got the threat of war against countries of the European Union. We all know why, because apart from words, our European community has never wanted to put pressure on Turkey and take measures that would make them back down. And this not only is not solidarity, but also I would even go as far as saying this is about double standards. And this policy doesn't do it justice. This practice is unfair and it hurts us. But despite that, we will fight hard because we believe in freedom. Even if we're alone, we're going to continue serving these principles and values, clamoring for our European family to stand by our side. President, we heard what you said, but now it is Europe that has to listen to you, hear you, and stand by your side. You've asked for action, and specific action that will prove solidarity, European solidarity.
Isabel Santos for 1 minute.
Senhor Presidente.
President Christodoulides, talking about the future, a future of reunification and reconciliation, also implies looking to the past and healing the wounds of the past. What about the 2,000 Cypriots who disappeared in 1973 in clashes and then in 1974 at the time of the invasion? All this time has gone by and we still don't know what became of 772 citizens of Cyprus and a large number of Turkish ships as well. We can't allow divisionism to be perpetuated because of this. People have been hard hit by the loss of members of their families without any opportunity to mourn them. The clock is ticking. We need to bring down barriers and build on the work of the Disappeared People in Cyprus Committee to bring an end to this sorry chapter. I know you are personally committed to this, and I hope you can hold out some prospect of solving this.
2 minutes.
Thank you very much, President. I, in turn, would also like to welcome you to the European Parliament on behalf of Renew Europe. You are a politician who doesn't operate within party politics. We have seen that you are open to political cooperation and independent individuals. You've also shown that you are a staunch proponent of European unification and that you want an enhanced role for the European Union in striving for a settlement to the Cyprus problem. You have our support, but I would like to turn to all colleagues and ask them to plug a huge gap in the European strategy that could be an obstacle over your efforts, President. We have the Russian invasion in Ukraine, which has caused a crisis. These are the imperialistic dreams of Putin. We have the issue of energy dependence on Russia, and even though the message were pretty clear in 2008 with what happened in Georgia and then in Crimea, in the Eastern Mediterranean, we also have other imperialist fantasies, and this is causing problems to the Republic of Cyprus. It's making it difficult for them to harness their energy sources, and there are issues with migration, and it is jeopardizing its very future. Now, did the EU realize what was happening? Does it still realize, and does it realize what's going on? They didn't realize what was happening with Putin in the past. Now, Erdogan and Putin have a lot in common. They've been in power for a long time, and they have these imperialist fantasies as well. Now, it's extremely important for the EU to stand by the side of the Republic of Cyprus in real terms, because otherwise the EU will be taken aback once again by things that shouldn't startle it.
To Sergei Lagodinsky for 1 minute.
And thank you for your visit, President. This union is a union of equals, but yours is a special case. For decades, your country has been in the epicenter of so many challenges, some imposed from outside, others self-inflicted, fossil explorations, golden visas, implementation of sanctions against Russia, and holding against foreign threats. This made you to the epicenter of history, and this history made you to what you are, an island of geopolitical pitfalls and geopolitical aspirations. As chair of the delegation of the European Union to EU-Turkey Joint Parliamentary Committee, I salute your humanitarian efforts in the wake of the terrible earthquake in Turkey. I strongly believe that Cyprus conflict can be overcome, and I commend your personal dedication to break the deadlock with the help of your allies. Our solidarity to the Republic of Cyprus is and will remain unbroken, and this must be made clear to all the regional powers. Dear President, let us work together for a sustainable, peaceful and progressive Cyprus. Thank you.
Danke. Frau Sita-Kanko, the floor is yours.
No, Mrs. Sita-Kanko.
Thank you. It means so many different things to so many people.
For me, it was, and it still is, a dream, a promise of freedom and equality between women and men, a promise of freedom to think and express your opinions without fearing for your life, a promise of having your voice heard on the global scene, a promise of peace. Europe, this promise is showing more and more cracks because we forget to be its guardians and we take it too often for granted. These cracks are more and more visible also to others. What shakes our Europe at its core and makes us often shiver is both a combination of threats from the inside and from the outside. Outside, we have, of course, China and Russia daring us. We have all seen how Turkey is continuously deceiving us and acting like a Trojan horse inside international organizations, accumulating provocations in the Mediterranean Sea, sabotaging unity in your country, using our failure to address the migration policy as an instrument against us. Look inside as well. From the inside, we fail to keep order and be strong enough to be taken seriously. Look at the institutionalization of victimhood that became very fashionable and how we get used to cancel culture instead of choosing excellence. This was not how Europe was built. To keep its promise, Europe must do one very simple thing, do its job and honor its history. Thank you.
Danke. Am Wort.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Harald Wilimski has the floor.
Danke sehr, Herr.
Thank you very much, President. President, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be able to continue this debate. This is Europe. When the illegal migration continues, as it has continued since 2015, then this is Africa. It's not going to be this is Europe anymore. There are 7 million people who've arrived since 2015, since the Arab Spring. Most of them have was not been given the status of a Geneva Convention refugee after examination of their case. Most of them are not under international protection. Rather, these people have arrived with hope, and they have disregarded all the rules. And so those people who are here illegally, that means 80% of them have been encouraged to return home, but they have not done so. So in this migration stream, there's been a cultural transformation in large European metropoles. If you go Munich, Brussels, Paris, or Vienna, where I come from, and it's not just a cultural transformation, but you can also deny there's serious security issues and safety issues. If we talk about the attack on the Brussels airport, what would happen yesterday in France with the knife attack. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will conclude now. Europe cannot have a future if we do not address illegal migration and say to people that we are prepared to help them back at home, but not let them into Europe. Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Kizurek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Αγαπητέ κύριε Πρόεδρο.
President, welcome. First of all, allow me to wish you the best of success in your new duties. Our country, Cyprus, has been through great trouble since 1964, and we have a de facto split since 1974. I would like to express my support to you for every step that you will take towards a settlement of the Cyprus problem on the basis of a bizonal, bicommunal federation with political unity of both communities. There is no other realistic solution, and the other solutions are unacceptable. And denying political political equality of Turkish Cypriots is unacceptable as well. peace in our country will be based on bringing both communities closer together in the same way as the European peoples managed to come out of conflict. It's also extremely important to make sure that the Turkish Cypriots come closer to the EU. I call upon the Republic of Cyprus to step up its efforts to strengthen relations between the Turkish Cypriots and the European Union. President, I'm speaking Greek to you because Turkish, my mother tongue, is an official language of the Republic of Cyprus, but it is not included in the official languages of the European Union. I call upon you to put an end to this unfairness. My party, AKEL, put forward a set of proposals on Turkish Cypriots, such as including them in Erasmus, mixed marriages, and so on. I hope that you will factor all of this in, take this on board, and proceed with your work along these lines. Thank you.
Mr. Bay.
Monsieur le Président.
Presidents, 50 years ago, Turkey invaded Cyprus. The conquest by brute force was followed by the more lasting conquest of democracy. Ankara has sent tens of thousands of Turks to populate the northern half of the island, overseen by a puppet government that no one recognises. That doesn't prevent Sultan Erdogan constantly provoking us, constantly calling for the partition of Cyprus into two countries. The same Erdogan who's carrying out illegal drilling in Cyprus' territorial waters and violating Greek airspace. He was re-elected a fortnight ago. He's close to the Muslim Brotherhood. He's re-Islamized his population and is supporting Islamists on our soil. He converted St. Sophia into a mosque, and he's inciting Turks in Europe to have 5 children, I'm quoting this, to speed up the great replacement on our continent. He's the same man who's extorting tens of millions of euros while pushing hundreds of thousands of migrants towards our borders and the Greek islands. For all these reasons, the threats and insults, the suffering of your people and the theft of your land, the time has come, Mr. President, to bring a definitive end to Turkey's accession process of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Paolo Rangel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President, Commissioner, I have to congratulate you on your recent election and especially in your commitment and engagement with European values and the European Union. We have today a Maltese President of the European Parliament welcoming the President of Cyprus in this House. And this means that in Europe there is no periphery. Mr. President, I want to be very clear. We stand for reunification of Cyprus. We condemn the illegal occupation of North Territory in Cyprus. Indeed, with the illegal and brutal Russian invasion and occupation of Ukraine, I believe that today European Union and European peoples are in a better condition to understand the impasses in which Cyprus finds itself. We cannot have double standards. And so I would like to ask you, how do you evaluate the European Union's commitment to the question of Cyprus in the recent years? And what is the exact model that you are proposing when you are asking for the European Union active role? That would be my questions, because we believe that a peaceful, prosperous, reunified Cyprus will always be in the interest of a peaceful and prosperous European Union. You can count on us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Kohut. The floor is yours.
Szanowny Panie Prezydencie, Unia Europejska pisze swoją historię. Unia finansuje.
President, the European Union has written its history. The European Union funds the purchase of arms for Ukraine. Placing sanctions on Russia is essential. We should step up our efforts. That's essential for our community and for our countries. We have to ensure that our decision-making mechanisms be made more efficient so as to enable us to intervene more quickly. The time has come to bring an end to the veto for foreign policy. We have to bring an end to national egoism. which is a threat to our security. We have to bring an end to free votes, which led to the collapse of Poland in the 19th century. We have to bring an end to Orban, his cronies and other populists. President, the shadow rapporteur on the report calling for inclusion of Cyprus in the Schengen information system, I've done my best in trying to ensure that country can play a full role in the European Union.
Mr. Cozy is the next speaker.
Again, dear President, dear Nikos, in this function I have fond memories of our past cooperation, and I know we can fully count on your leadership for a sovereign and democratic union. You mentioned in your speech Jean Monnet and the change of context. I do believe that the Ukrainian conflict has changed the context, and that the enlargement has become a fundamental geopolitical tool and geopolitical question. Against this background, I think that it is not credible to go toward the next enlargement without a deep reform of the European Union, of the institution of the common policies, and that we must address the unresolved territorial issues within the Union, in particular in view of the next enlargement. Against this background again, and in view of the Cyprus presidency in 2026, I would like to better understand from you what are your key priorities for the reform of the European Union, and what do you expect the Union to do more or differently with regard to the Cyprus territorial issues to break the deadlock. Thank you very much.
Dankeschön, Frau Henrike Hahn.
Mrs. Henrike Hahn, you have the floor.
Dear Mr. President, Cyprus is an important member state of the European Union. And Europe is interested in a stable, peaceful situation in the Eastern Mediterranean and Southern Europe. Turkish military saber-rattling will not change that. Cyprus has an important role in achieving the EU climate and environmental goals, and we need the best possible European cooperation in that, especially on renewable energies and not necessarily on fossil fuels, of course. And we welcome the current progress on structural reforms of the justice system in Cyprus, pointing to the Commission's 2022 Rule of Law report, including the necessity of better investigating high-level corruption cases. And for us in the European Union, it's also very important that sanctions against Russia are properly enforced. We are looking forward to the cooperation, and that's for sure. Europe needs Cyprus as much as Cyprus needs Europe. Thank you.
Danke, Frau Kollegin.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Vistisen.
Herr Präsident.
President, year after year, we continue.
President, year after year.
We continue to see this farce of Turkey as an EU candidate country. And then we see the election of Erdogan again, the same Turkey that year and year bribe and extort Europe to give us millions and millions of taxpayers' money. And it's Turkey who keeps your country occupied in military occupation for decades. So how long is this farce going to continue? How long are we going to pretend that Turkey somehow belongs in the EU, in Europe? How long are we going to keep writing a blank check to the Islamist Erdogan and his regime in Ankara? We have to end this. This has to stop. We have to end the candidate status of Turkey.
Danke vielmals.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is not currently present, so I will give the floor to Mrs. Winzig.
Dank, sehr geehrter Herr Präsident.
Thank you. President, for decades now, Cyprus has faced overwhelming challenges. This is perhaps one of the reasons that Cyprus was also able to recover quickly from the economic impact of the pandemic. However, lots of other countries, Cyprus is obliged to quickly reduce its dependence on Russia, in particular when it comes to services. It's taken great steps in this direction by focusing on digitalization and high-level research. President, you referred to gas reserves, which hopefully will make a contribution to ensuring that the European Union can reduce its dependence on Russia when it comes to gas and oil, thereby supporting your process of transformation. Your ambitious forward-looking policies also show how you intend to use money from Next Generation EU to help strengthen the European energy networks and reinforce sustainable energy. That's very important. Obviously, migration is an essential question for you. Like Austria, Cyprus failed to get satisfactory answers from the European Union regarding efforts to stem enormous flows of migration. Talks are underway in the Council, but it's very important now for the whole of Europe that we quickly step to implementation of the measures adopted. President, I wish you all the best when it comes to rolling out your plans, and in particular in your efforts to ensure that Cyprus continue to play a full role in the European Union.
Thank you. Welcome, President Christodoulides. We're living through difficult, extraordinary times. The pandemic, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the global climate crisis have all taught us that it's only if we're united that we can provide our continent with a future. Together, we have done and are doing so much. I have in mind Next Generation EU, the COVID vaccines, measures for the green and digital transition, and our first steps towards a European Defence Union. And yet, Europe is often seen by our citizens as something remote or maybe even hostile. The winds of nationalism and division that we see today pose the risk of turning the clock back in historical terms. In a year's time, we'll be holding European elections. It's up to us to provide some substance which will provide hope for our citizens again, starting with young people, holding out prospects rather than talking about fears. Colleagues, President, we have to lay the missing part of the foundations of Europe, a social Europe of solidarity, ever more united, a shared home where each and every one of us can be players and think and speak European.
Thank you for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, President. Commissioner, Honourable President of the Republic of Cyprus, the active involvement of the European Union in order to help solve the Cyprus problem is key, but it's also vital for the EU to play its historic role as an international player, because we cannot have a member state where the community acquis is suspended in part of the country, and we can't have a candidate country, Turkey, occupying troops on European soil. But allow me to mention two factors that are linked to the European involvement of Cyprus. First of all, harnessing of energy and natural gas. There must not be any further delays, and there has to be European investment. Cyprus, a member state, has a very important opportunity to contribute to the strategic autonomy of the EU. The second factor is the time factor. Time is working against us when it comes to harnessing gas deposits. If we don't move forward over the next 5 years, then it will no longer be that appealing. Even in Europe, with high technologies and low costs, we have 40% of the energy mix made up of renewable energy sources. Over the next 4 years, during your term, it's important for Cyprus to turn towards the future.
For 1 minute.
Domnule președinte, povestea europeană.
Chairman, the European story of Cyprus shows that everything is possible, that the EU makes it possible for a country to live in peace and overcome the most difficult moments in history. You're a model for the future accession of Moldova to the EU. If Cyprus managed to overcome its internal barriers and divisions, then the European integration of Moldova will not be prevented by the petty interests of the Transnistrian authorities. I take this opportunity to urge you to make available the pre-accession funds for Moldova and speed up its accession. I come from a country that ensures the protection of the external borders of the European Union. I can very well understand the challenges faced by Cyprus, and I can urge you to adopt a common position that would bring real solutions and stability in the region. We have to reunite Europe around our democratic values and around mutual respect, and we must understand that the important items on the agenda of every state must be of interest for the entire Union.
Stavru for 1 minute.
Honourable President of the Republic of Cyprus, I in turn would like to welcome you to the European Parliament. President, we're going through a very difficult period. We need to remain level-headed and make sure that we don't have de facto situations imposed on us and we don't get the kind of rhetoric that we heard from Mr. Erdogan yesterday. However, I would like you to say a few words about issues that don't pertain to Cyprus problem, gender equality, which is one of the fundamental values of the European Union. As the only female Cypriot MEP, I feel a huge sense of responsibility for us to solve this. What is your vision for Cyprus and the Europe of the future when it comes to gender equality? How can we effectively tackle this problem? How can we do so decisively so we can help every woman, every young girl who is listening to us and who wants a future without discrimination?
Demetris Papadakis for 2 minutes.
President, the Cypriot people entrusted you with their vote, and they want substantial change. Golden passports, Pegasus, Panama Papers. These are events which unfortunately have tarnished the image of our country and have meant that our society feel disillusioned with political life. We want a catharsis in Cypriot society. We want to be able to restore our pride and image. We want a modern rule of law in Cyprus, a free homeland. On the basis of the Eurobarometer poll, most Cypriots feel that what the EU does has a direct impact on their daily lives. And they say that at some point in time, or even all the time, it's difficult for them to make ends meet and to pay the bills, and they're not happy with the measures taken by the government or the European Union. The future of Cyprus is inextricably linked to the future of Europe. And the European Parliament is fighting for a better Europe, and we expect the same from you. There's the whole issue of energy, so that we can have a strong and democratic Cyprus that will also help with a better Europe. Cypriot citizens deserve decent wages. They are clamoring for a state that will provide decent housing to everyone and that will support young people, that will invest in new technologies, and that will promote entrepreneurship. They want support for the most vulnerable groups. They want a clean environment by implementing the Green Deal. In a country, we'll be able to harness solar power and all its benefits, and we can also aim for sustainable development. Now, for 49 years, Cyprus has been under Turkish occupation. We are striving for a European solution, and it is right that we want more active involvement of the EU to help us achieve a settlement. President, we recognize the fact that you have clear will. We know that you want to do this, and we expect action.
And now, dear President Christodoulides, after this very wide-ranging and comprehensive exchange of views, can I ask you please to take the podium again to respond to this full chamber?
Madam President, honourable members of the European Parliament, Commissioner, I have been greatly encouraged by what I heard here today. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for supporting our initiative to have the EU more actively involved in the efforts to solve the Cyprus problem. The message that I hear loud and clear is universal support. And I hope that in the future the conditions will be there so that with the active participation of the EU, we will achieve our goal to resume talks and solve the Cyprus problem. I would like to mention that I am thrilled with the fact that you understand the huge challenges that Cyprus faces, not just Cyprus, but also other countries when it comes to migration. The European Union cannot afford the luxury of failing. We have to work together. We have to tackle this together, and we'll only be able to solve this problem if we also tackle the root causes underpinning migration.
Time constraint, let me very briefly touch on some issues raised by by the interventions. First of all, on climate and on the issue of climate, we view the environment as a valuable heritage that needs to be protected. My reference to oil and gas is because of the role that oil and gas can play as a bridge to reach the European Green Deal. That is why I stress the importance of oil and gas. I want to mention something on the issue of missing persons. Sincerely, we appreciate the Parliament's continual interest in this humanitarian issue, as demonstrated also by the recent appointment of a new special rapporteur. The issue of missing persons constitutes one of the most tragic aspects of the Turkish invasion and continuing occupation of my country. The families of the missing persons, either Greek Cypriots or Turkish Cypriots, are entitled to recover the remains of their loved ones and know the circumstances under which they went missing.
Now, by way of conclusion, President, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to underscore the historic debt that we have, and I am addressing you here in the House of European Democracy. I believe that we have a historic duty to work together so that this project based on peace and prosperity and our European family, the legacy that was bequeathed upon us, can also bequeathed by us to the new generations, and that it will be stronger and more resilient. I truly believe that we can achieve this. And what I can say today with certainty is that as the elected representative of the Cypriot people, I will do everything I can as a member of the European Council in order to promote a further integration of the European Union. I am a staunch proponent of European integration, and I will do everything I can on my part to have this institutional deepening with more common policies, and do everything we can so that the EU can really be a key player on the international stage. My vision of the EU is also based on a reunified Cyprus. I know we cannot change geography. I know that we cannot choose our neighbors or change our neighbors, and I full well what difficulties lie within the Cyprus problem. But at the same time, my vision for a stronger Europe is based on a reunified and strong Cyprus that will be an even more active role in the European Union. And that is why I would like to wrap up my speech by making the most of the fact that I'm here in the European Parliament, and I would like to send a message to our Turkish Cypriots countrymen and women. They are citizens of the Republic of Cyprus, and they are citizens of the EU, and their future, the future of the Armenians, Maronites and Latins and all Cypriot people is based on the fact that we are a member state of the European Union. And as president of all Cypriots, my greatest achievement and legacy will be to bequeath to our children a reunited Cyprus, a reunified country that will be an even stronger partner in a stronger European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Christodoulides, for this exchange. And I now suspend the session for a couple of minutes before the vote takes place. Thank you.